Hey everyone, welcome to the Growing with Fishes podcast. I'm Steve, and today we have Jessica Patton with us, as well as uh, Dave. Um, I forget. I'm sorry. What was your last name again? I apologize.
The name's Damien.
Damien. I'm sorry, Damien. What was your?
Damien.
Okay, we have Damien from Barbados with us as well today, and we're going to be talking about a whole bunch of different topics, and uh, everything from how to grow in the Caribbean to um, how to run your farm. And it's we don't often get a chance to talk to people in the Caribbean. He was kind enough to stay up late for us. It's about almost 11 o'clock at night where he is. So big shout out to him. Greatly appreciate what he's doing to take the time out of his day with us. Also want to give a quick shout out to Ouroboros Farms. I teach the medicinal herb class up there. I'll be teaching that in April, and I forget when the following date is off the top of my head, but the next one's in April. And then we also teach an aquaponic cannabis class there at the end of March, the March 24th or 25th or 25th and 26th. I forget the exact date. You can go on to ouroborosfarms.com and get the exact date if you're looking for that on there. Also, shout out to True Aquaponics for having us up and listed on their site there as well. They have a great options for different nutrient supplements, and uh, it's a great source for different things like heaters and other aquaponic stuff. So if you're looking for a place for aquaponic goods, it's a great place to look. Thanks, Damien, for joining us today, all the way from Barbados. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do and a little bit about some of the crops you grow down there and what it's like to grow in the Caribbean?
Yeah. So good night to everyone. Afternoon. Good morning, everyone. Uh, in Barbados, we on the aquaponic scene, we kind of look to grow nutrient dense food, right? Uh, Lettuce and these kind of things naturally just grow here very easily. So that's open field territory. So because we got to pay for all the infrastructure doing the aquaponics, we tend to look to grow nutrient dense crops and high value herbs, uh, namely parsley and a little bit of chives. Yeah,
Awesome.
right. We also push the quinoa a lot. Uh, but what we find for that at this time of year, don't got any in because it's a short days crop. So we got to grow it a specific time of the year. Yeah.
So tell us about growing quinoa there in the tropical environment, and some of the other crops that you grow that are specific to the tropics there.
Okay. So mostly we pushing culinary herbs like parsley, and quinoa is a niche market that's growing, is growing a lot and really fast. Uh, but you see, before we even talk about the crops that we're growing, I want to get into why we're using aquaponics to grow these
Sure.
crops. No, or let me backtrack a little bit and tell you a little bit about myself. So, how we get into aquaponics was actually from a movie called Biodome. It's a comedy from, I guess, the 90s or whatever.
Yes.
Uh, where these guys got locked into, it was like a party on Biosphere 2. Jessica, you remember that
Biodome.
one?
Yeah, I'm very familiar with that. Yes.
Yeah, we love Biodome. Polly Shore
And
and all. It's
yeah,
great.
probably.
Yeah. So we got some common ground here, huh? So I had a cassette with Biodome on it. I used to watch it all the time. And then I got in the internet. It was dial-up at that time. Uh, I before modem, I log on. I came across searching for the concept of the biodome, because in watching the movie, you get to think, about society and technology and all these things and how we got to interact with it on a more peaceful level, so to speak. You get what I'm saying?
Yes.
Right, right.
Absolutely.
So that's how I get attracted to aquaponics from the beginning. And that viewpoint I maintain throughout all this time, yeah? Because you know, Badon was a long time ago.
Yes.
Yeah, so from there to now, my concept of looking at aquaponics was to implement the idea of aquaponics into modern society uh, in general, right? Because I knew that this viewpoint or this concept was unique to me at the time because nobody else was thinking about it. So I tried to design my systems in such a way that anybody that is even interested in the concept could get involved. All right. All you need to do is buy the product, stick it together. There's three pipes that's connect, and use be able to operate our aquaponic system. Okay,
Yes.
you following me?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Very nice. So I finally, over the space of 10 years, actually a whole decade, I finally get to understand the bridge. I'm talking about the cutting edge where aquaponics applies to society in general. I get to understand where that bridge lies is in the labor management of the system, right? Now, I get that viewpoint when it was managing a 6-acre operation where I successfully implemented the idea of aquaponics into it. It was 4 acres of greenhouse, 2 acres of a pond.
Nice.
Okay,
Yeah.
right. We had 12 workers, and I quickly realized this was my first job on the commercial level. I quickly realized that the commercial application of aquaponics has very little to do with aquaponics and everything to do with the labor involved. Okay,
Yep. Yep.
Yep.
right. So with that in mind, I designed the system to suit where the limiting factor of the system is the labor input. And by limiting factor, I mean we assuming we get all the other variables running at optimal. So we could pull the most from the labor that we involving. You got me? You following me?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. So when we're looking at the labor and how it is, or the best way to suit the labor to society is in an 8 hour segment of the day. Is like a day work. You're going to work, you put in your 8 hours, you get what you're supposed to get from the profit of your labor, right?
Yes.
Yep.
So how we design the system is you calculate how much transplants you could do, how much harvesting you could do, how much by harvesting I mean fish harvesting, plant harvesting, how much germination you could do in a day, and set it out. Be structuring it from, excuse me, sorry about that. Be structuring it from the labor's perspective. So the day work can look like from 6 in the morning, 7, 8. If it's a 9, from 6 to 9, the laborer will go out and harvest. Okay, the first task in the morning is harvesting. After harvesting is maintenance. After maintenance is germination and pro what's the word I'm looking for? Propagation, fish and plants. And then evening you shut it shop and go home. All right? You're doing that 5 days a week. So that's the limiting factor that we're using to build the system upon.
Awesome.
You guys follow me? Okay.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Right. No.
So, what is your preferred method of growing in that way? Like, do you prefer rafts or NFT? I see in your picture there you have the piping with the plants in them. Do you want to, what is the bulk
Yeah.
of your farm?
Yeah, that system was research system, early product. Right now we put people is readily available here. Uh, is organic. It allows you to grow a lot more fish and produce a lot more plants. Uh, is way cheaper than any processed media. It's literally 100 times cheaper to use coconut husk than I can here in Barbados because any processed media is going to come from Spain, right? So that handling is going to be easy,
Hmm.
right? So uh, that cut out any processed media from me down here on the island. But coconut husk is ready is all over the place.
Awesome.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So, is there any unique challenges you've run into growing in Barbados that you think might not have been run into in other places, or any like particular tips or tricks that you want to talk about in regards to growing in Barbados, or any unique pests that maybe you run into that we don't, or do you have a lack of pests because you're on an island in the middle of the ocean, or?
Yeah, we basically brought in middle in between the Atlantic Ocean to the south side and the Caribbean Ocean on the west side, right? Um, anything that we need gotta come in by ship, either from Trinidad or Miami, and it's always a hassle coming through the port. So any large scale um, new crop technology is always be a hassle to implement, right? So basically, we gotta use the hardware store that sell the basic plumbing supplies. And for tanks, we use the polyurethane tanks, uh, very cheap to
You
make.
use the water tanks like we do over in Jamaica?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Those are nice, you know.
yeah.
All about if you put about 4 feet in the hole about 300 gallons of water, excellent amount when you do fish, because you can harvest that in 15 minutes in one labor.
Oh, hey, Damien, I had a question as well. Um,
Yeah.
so, when coming from an area with so much sun and rain, does the aquaponics give you a higher yield than the farms around you? Is there a noticeable advantage to doing aquaponics in an area that has such capacity for natural abundance?
Uh, eventually, you still got to rest your land. You can't produce continuously from one spot in Mother Nature, right?
Okay.
So that's the advantage we have. By using the aquaponics and using coordinates instead of that, I got total control over the root zone. The application of the water and the application of the amount of nutrients are going to the root zone. I got control of that.
So even even in a tropical climate, it proves to be a superior yield, a higher yield,
Yeah,
because of the method.
because you can do it continuously. Every week you could be the parsley man. You produce parsley every week. Could be the choice man. Produce every week.
Cool. Thank you, Damien.
Yeah. Where do you think you get that, or what you want to get that? That is the business model involved behind the alcohol. Let's make it successful. The ability to constantly produce.
Wonderful, thank you. I've Now, have you had to do anything in order to hurricane proof, or do you guys deal with a lot of earthquakes there, like we do in Jamaica, or is there any other precautions you have to go through with system construction?
The system is designed to as a layer over a normal farm, right? Um, I look at it from this perspective where I designing an aquaponic system. I look at it from the angle as I improving the farming method that is already here, right? That's why you use corner husk because it's similar to soil, but it still gives you the ability to run a lot of water through it. So you could use it as a biofilter, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Right. So the aquaponic system is designed like a over layer of an open field farm, uh, where we collect the rainwater during the rainy season, and it is last through the dry season. But our rainwater collection is from the grow beds because it's an open field system. So coupling that with the fact that we 100% solar, I thinking that I in the range of permaculture here right now, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, and I want to stop a minute here. The reason I choose to talk about this idea in detail with this audience for the first time ever is because uh, we share one thing in common, and that's the plant, right? The cannabis
Yep.
plant.
Yep.
Right.
And the need to eat.
And and I want you to start and look at it from a different perspective. Uh, if you put away, if when I put away my ego, I get to realize that it's not me farming this plant; it's this plant farming me.
Hmm.
Anybody that farming this plant also has a similar view of society as me because the plant choose all of us to operate.
I couldn't agree more, especially when you're growing ganja.
Exactly within this parameter. We're the best way for you to describe it is the cutting edge of where technology manages photosynthesis. Now, photosynthesis is very important. It's primary production. Society cannot survive without it. Where I see aquaponics is exactly at the cutting edge, where society and technology, where modern technology is managing photosynthesis.
Hmm.
Are we all in agreement here?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yo, brother, we're
Nice.
in a, not only in agreement, but I believe that people can, with the prerogative, grow as an exponentially growing population in this world and even the next, if we just simply make it our mission to provide abundance with what the earth offers, rather than um, the illusion of scarcity or conflict or
And
competition. Yeah,
I'm in total
I think
agreement with
I
you,
think
my
the fact
brother.
that you're bringing this to where you are, is of incredible value, and I think you should have pride in that, and I at least feel honored to talk to somebody who's on the same team of the potential of human
Nice,
goodness. Yeah.
nice. I
That that is C Funk. He is a resident artist here at Eden, and he does a lot of stuff here, and he's hanging out with the show this week. So
so what's your take on this message?
My consensus, I agree with you completely. I feel you 100%. I do the most work with the plants, and I feel that that I do not grow the plants. I am a steward to them. They tell me what they need to grow.
Yeah.
And I agree with you 100%. I felt very humbled by what you had to say. That was a very, very awesome. A lot of people do not farm that way. That's wonderful.
Okay. Well, you will know that sometimes you will come into your farm and a plant just get knocked over, and you just happen to turn up there just to save it. I think it's the other way around.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
I'm sure it happened to all of you already.
Absolutely.
awesome. Do you have any other tips or tricks you want to tell us about from growing in Barbados before we switch guests? Or do you want to tell us about the aquaponics machine? I'm sorry, I totally forgot about that. Do you want to tell us about that?
Okay. So basically, if you understand our grid solar system, the solar power system,
Mm-hmm.
and how you set up the wiring of such a system, the battery banks, that kind of thing. Think of the wire, however you're moving your water, and the battery as a component of aquaponics. By component, I mean one of the six functions of the life support system, filtration, movement, uh, whatever. You following me?
Absolutely.
We're following you.
So, what or how you want to say is that once you understand how the current moving through the batteries and that kind of thing, you kind of superimpose the aquaponic system onto that. So you will got, or kind of what people's been hinting at with talking about decoupled systems, right? Is that same concept that I talking about, and that concept is running the circle in its own independent loop, meaning you got biological filtration on one loop, controlled by a pump. You got if you're using a sediment filter, you got that on a loop by itself. You got the solid filtration on a loop by itself. All of these loops tie into one main loop. You got the grow bed on a loop by itself. You got the fish tank on a loop by itself. All of them into
So
a main
Damien,
loop.
this machine,
Yeah.
is this something that you specifically have to get from, say, the manufacturer? Is this something that people can put together themselves out of a design that's maybe accessible somewhere on the internet?
This is my gift to this community.
That is a beautiful thing, man.
Yeah.
So is there a place if people want to follow in the footsteps that you have so paved with this design, where would people go about finding such information?
Well, you Google aquaponic machine.
Oh,
They
simply
got
so simply. But it's
yeah.
your, but it is your gift to tell us about it, or is this an innovation of your design?
Uh,
It's your gift one way or another. But I'm just curious. Yeah.
what I'm saying is that because I grew up on I get to look at aquaponics a slightly different way, right?
I couldn't quite understand exactly what that was because of the technical issue. Which would you mind repeating that one more time?
Because I'm growing on an island,
Yes.
I get to look at aquaponics a slightly different way than you.
Oh
That
yes,
got
of course.
access
Yes.
to all of these.
The interaction in a natural sense is more close to you. So this is giving you insight.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Cool. So this is of
So,
your innovation or your realization. This machine that you have conjured.
exactly. But the
So
idea
this is truly a gift from you to the world of this community.
to this community,
So where do we
so that
find it?
people could
Well,
understand.
how do we go about doing it ourselves? The way that you have laid down. I mean, I mean, is it just the conversation? Is it just going back what you've just told us now, or is there something in a visual sense that that this community can draw upon? That because if there isn't already, I imagine that there's some motivated people, at least around me, that would like to help you be able to present that. But if there is something that we would like to know where it's at.
Right, I will send you something to my YouTube page, but if you Google aquaponics, you will find things here.
Awesome.
Damien, we're getting some real technical problems. If you Google
Aquaponic machine.
aquaponic machine, and you come up,
Yeah,
and is there anything more specific, or are you just the only aquaponic machine that
I'm the only one.
you are the only one? Well,
Patton.
that is a proud title. I'm giving you a virtual medal right now because you are the one with the aquaponic machine that you've decided to give as a gift to the people of this community, and that is a thing, another thing to be proud of, Damien. Um, That is super cool. Well, I'm going to look at that as soon as Steve's done with this. He's actually in the restroom right now, but
Yeah.
I'm taking these good notes. Okay.
Well, the gift actually is just the idea. Once you look at it from this perspective, you'll understand what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
Yes, and we will look at that. That sounds of incredible value.
Basically, basically you just pump the water through one large main line. No, I get all of my information off of the internet, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't
Where
rank
where do you like to go on the internet for your information?
all everywhere, everywhere on the internet. Uh, started out most of my information from Ouroboros.com. And you guys know that it was a popular website.
What website is that?
Overgrow.com.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, I bounced around there a little bit, and then I went to Icy Mag, where there's some interesting threads, like the living soil thread. Tom Hill had a thread growing big trees. That was nice as well. So after Icy Mag, I kind of link up to Backyard Aquaponics. We're not wrong for a couple of years.
Willing and able, brother.
Start doing Facebook.
Backyard aquaponics is good. They have a lot of. They've been around for a long time. It's a couple of silly characters over there, but. Alrighty. We're gonna. Is there anything else you wanted to mention or plug before we switch gears and talk to Jessica for a minute, for a few?
I still I want to hear what you think about the idea, because I don't think you guys are having 100%.
No, it sounds like a great idea. It's great to see other people that are out there supporting the community, supporting education, and supporting the industry in general. I mean, that's why you're starting to see some of the commercials, the breakthroughs that you're seeing now, is because people like you, people like Sylvia, people like Ken and Jessica out at Ouroboros, and people I know they have a couple people that are working under them now that I've gotten a chance to meet, that they've been inspired, you know, to totally change gears in their life, and work into the agricultural industry based after meeting them and seeing their farm. And it's doing what you're doing is very powerful work, and it's great to see you doing that kind of thing. You're taking, I mean, kind of in that vein, that's why we do this show. I was inspired by a cannabis show called the Dude Grows Show, where they just take, people's questions and different grow problems and different products that claim different XYZ, and they put it to the test, or they solve people's problems and they tell them what's going on with their thing. And it was just cool to hear more of like a almost, it's funny you mentioned this. I don't know if you guys have PRI or NPR in Barbados. I don't know if that's something you have there, but in the States we have something called Car Talk, which is like a really goofy car show where these guys get really weird car problems and they talk about, they're really goofy and they're almost like cartoons when they explain stuff, but they help people with their problems, and they take their problems and they make it entertaining, and they try to make it not boring to listen to. And the Dude Grows guys kind of took that and did like a Cheech and Chong version of kind of like what they do, and it was neat to hear that. And that's really what inspired Marty and I. Marty and I were both passionate about aquaponic cannabis production, and we were trying to figure out a way to like help spread the word that aquaponic cannabis production works if you just, first off, have a good understanding of what you're doing, and second of all, have good genetics, and as long as you do those two things, you can have a lot of good success. And just how do we get people to realize that this is a viable way to do it? And we thought the best way to do it was to start a little podcast that we could start every week, and promote these ideas and promote these different things that we've tested or proven, both through the companies that I've worked with, and knowledge that I have and that he's had. Him more so in the soil industry, me similar in the hydroponic aquaponic industry, and to try and disseminate information. It's great to see you doing that in your own way with the aquaponics machine. It's great to see that you're doing that in your own set, your own way as well. How all of us are on the same wavelength, where we're all trying to disseminate knowledge in our own ways.
Here, Steve.
Damien, I had a comment as well. Just the way that a computer used to be something that only a few people who were really into it, like kind of like nerdy hobbyists, would be into it to make it. Now it's accessible for everyone. Yeah. Because people have made it into a interface that is accessible.
That's what
aquaponics with your machine, so that more people can just get on board, as you said, and do it and make it accessible for more people. And have to is for the autonomous survival of more human beings on the planet Earth, and overcoming hunger by making it accessible in a way that their smartphone might be, in another way. It's like they can access it. They don't need to work. You're making it work for them with this. Teach a man to fish. Give a man a fish to eat for a day. Teach a man a fish to eat for a lifetime. And with the machine, you're helping people feed themselves. Helping the greater agenda of the whole thing, and I think that's going there.
Man, I want to thank you for that, man. Well, you said everything I want to
do. Damien, I appreciate it.
Damien, I'd like to say that I have a deep respect for the way that you work with the plants. I have a deep respect for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I can look forward to hearing what you guys say. But I just want to add a quick note that I want the aquaponic idea to be an idea. The aquaponic machine to be an idea, right? Where we right at the cutting edge. And I want everybody to add their little piece. This is Franklin, your own
Click on the wrong link.
experience is unique. But just add it into the idea. Let me get this thing going.
Absolutely. Send me the link on Facebook, and I'll add that to the description so that everyone has a link to it and can find it that way.
Okay,
That'd be wonderful.
nice. So I want to say thank you for giving me your time.
Yeah,
So I can
absolutely. Thanks again. You're welcome to stick around if you want, or you know, if you need to get going. I know it's very late where you are, so I need to come down and visit you on the next trip I do down to the Caribbean. I'll have to hop islands and come over and see you.
Yeah, it's awesome. You were in Jamaica.
Yeah. I'm in Jamaica at least a couple of months a year. I have a third ownership of a company down there, so yeah. I'm down there helping keeping them running. We got all different kinds of medicinal trees and herbs and vegetables and ganja growing right now. So
So be it. They let you go down there?
what's that?
They let you go?
Oh yeah. I go down there, you know, 3 to 6 months a year, depending on what what the government's
Sorry,
feeling like.
yeah, you,
That much.
I mean, are you allowed to grow
Oh, am I
whatever
allowed
you
to grow? Yeah. So I work with a company down there called Golden Green Herbs that has a license to grow down there. Yeah.
want, manager?
What's that?
You don't want to help him?
Oh, I might. We'd have to talk off air on that one.
Uh, um, I, the plant is very easy, and
Yeah, you can definitely make it work great in aquaponics, especially on a big scale, especially in that kind of climate. So
yeah, yeah. So I don't have anything to do with it. That's one of the reasons why, because it's a very similar plant. I think of C4 plants or C3, sorry. Uh, but the quinoa is almost identical to the other plant.
to ganja.
Yeah, from what we um
You
the
talking
nutrient
nutrient
requirement,
wise, or
yeah, the nutrient requirements, the like cycle requirements.
yeah, that's why we switched to the dual root zone planting with the soil layer. The benefits you get from the mycorrhizae and the terrestrial microbes really help allow for the denser flowers.
You use soil.
Yeah, we use a method called dual root zone planting.
I always thought doing
Yeah, if you look on some of the videos on the Potent Ponics YouTube channel, there's I did a really good how to on how to plant the plants up. I still need to do a follow up on dosing, but um,
so if you're
I'm
yes,
waiting. I'm waiting till they get either the greenhouse here built or the one in Canada built next, which is an announcement I'll do later in the show.
okay. So dual root zone is super soil or
So
abbreviation.
yeah. Basically, we do a super soil with a layer of burlap and then a media below it in a pot with a mesh bottom pot so that the water can flow through the bottom and flood and drain the bottom and allow for high gas exchange, and then the soil layer on top that you can supplement and add nutrients to if you need to supplement or make it acidic or very alkaline or adjust it to whatever a particular plant's needs are. The tap roots tend to not care quite as much as the bulk of the finer nutrient uptake roots, which are generally in your top 6 to 8 inches of soil layer, with the exception of trees. So um, they're the ones that are much more sensitive to pH as far as nutrient production and plant production and yield. So
Nice. Nice. You ever tried coconut?
what's that?
You ever tried coconut?
Coconut, you said?
Yeah, coconut.
I haven't. Oh, coconut husk. Yeah, so coconut husk has its own issues. In the States, they call it coco coir. And the problem is that it has a high calcium and magnesium uptake rate. So while you can grow on it, you have to boost your calcium and magnesium levels approximately 15 to 20% in order to make sure that you're accounting for the amount that is uptaken by the coco coir fiber.
Oh, well, I don't have that.
Yeah, so if you're if you're using a lot of coconut husk in your system, be sure that you're dosing extra magnesium and extra calcium because it specifically uptakes a lot of those two nutrients.
Well, Barbados is 99% limestone.
Hmm.
We get all the water from on the ground.
Yeah, it's like
So
Jamaica. You got lots of calcium carbonate around.
yeah, so that's probably why I don't see a problem like that. They're topping up with that water.
Yeah, plus your pH of your water is probably real high, yeah?
Yeah, so the
Yeah,
coconut
yeah.
actually can't stay out for.
Man, it's so I can't tell you, this is on a separate note. I can't tell you how nice it is to hear someone that speaks at least a little bit of patois, or at least that accent. Having lived in Jamaica for like half of last year, it's so like pleasant and comforting to speak to someone with your accent. But the guy sitting next to me is like, I can't understand half the stuff he's saying, and I'm like, I I can understand everything you're saying. Like this is great. Like sorry, I just wanted to say that.
Okay. So
It's just pleasant.
uh, Jessica,
Yes.
you grow your water culture.
I'm sorry, you're breaking up.
You use deep water culture.
Yes.
What kind of crops you grow?
Mostly leafy greens. So lettuces, a lot of Asian greens, kales, watercress, a lot of herbs. Let's see what else we're doing. Lemongrass, garlic, um, mostly leafy greens. That's mostly what we stick to.
Okay, cool, cool.
We do a lot of experiments as well, though. We've grown hops. We're doing cucumbers right now. We've done tomatoes and peppers. Loofah.
Yeah. We're gonna switch gears for a minute, and Jessica, why don't you tell us about what you do, and a little bit about what it takes to run a farm, and some of the crops you guys are growing there. For those of you who don't know, I teach at full disclosure, I teach at Ouroboros Farms. I teach the medicinal herb and cannabis class, and I know Jessica, I guess, reasonably well. I haven't known you that long, but
Yeah, so my name's Jessica Patton. I'm one of the owners and original founders of Ouroboros Farms. We've been running for 5 years now. And I work mainly with the plants, running the actual farming part of the farm, but also am the farm manager. And it's been quite a journey over the last 5 years. I would say that it took Ken and I about a year and a half to kind of figure out what we were doing, learning how to farm. But I would say, we've overcome a lot of obstacles, and we're doing really well right now. You asked me earlier what it takes to run a farm, and I think that basically, besides the basic understanding of how aquaponics works, your basic aquaponics 101, it's really finding a team that works well together and that has somebody who can excel in all of the different fields, because it's not just about farming. It's not just about growing plants and working with the plants. There's a lot of other things involved as well. so with the basic farming and managing the plants and working with the plants and harvesting, planting, seeding, all of that, Elise Rudolph, who is somebody who we hired about a year ago, and I work very close with, we manage most of the plants. So with the seeding and the planting and the harvesting, as well as the crop planning and all that, we do that, and that, to me, that's the easiest part of it. That's what I excel in. That's what I love to do. But there's also other sides of it. There's the business side, which is the accounting, and the deliveries and talking to customers and all that. That's something that Ken does, as well as managing the system, as far as inputs go and water quality, and all of that. That's definitely an important part too. And then what I consider your dirty jobs, which are your IPM and your the filters, cleaning the filters and maintaining the system. That's another big part of it as well. And then something that we've slacked on the last 4 years, but have recently just hired somebody to work with us doing marketing. That's another really big part of it. It's, not just managing your website and your website updates, and dealing with new customers and all that, but your social media and promoting your classes, the classes that Steve teaches at our farm, as well as Ken teaching the Aquaponics 1 and the Aquaponics 2 class, and then the Aquaponics farming course. That's a 3-day intensive class that we teach 5 times this year, I think. So there's a lot that goes into it, and it takes a team to run it.
Absolutely. Do you want to tell us a little bit about some of the things that you've learned along the way in your 5 years? I guess maybe a couple of key points as far as advice for people that are looking to start a new farm. I know you're one of the you're one of the people that I've met that are you and Ken are some of the best people I've met. Some of the handful of people that I've met that are just truly just a joy to be around in the industry. And it's a pleasure to meet both of you, and I'd love to hear some of your guys that things that you guys run into as far as hurdles or advice you have for people that are looking to start a new aquaponics farm.
Yeah, absolutely. My main thing would be learn from other people's mistakes. These are things that you don't have to make yourself. If other people have made them and you learn from them, you don't have to make these mistakes. You're going to make plenty of mistakes on your own. This is something that's a given with farming. So learn from other people's mistakes. There's plenty of people out there in the industry that have been doing this for quite a while and have experience. And if people are, from what I've experienced, people are willing to share their mistakes in all aspects of the, the marketing and farming and the business aspect, everything. I would say learn from what other people have to say. Just listen, connect with other people and listen. And then also start small. I think our first system was 20,000 gallons, and I would say start small. Figure out how it works before you dive into a commercial system. Like I said, it took us about 1.5 years to figure out exactly what we were doing. And a lot of those, though they were learning opportunities, they were very expensive learning opportunities, but definitely worth it. So yeah, start small, figure out your system, figure out, how it all works. And have your marketing down. Like I said, that's something that we have just recently tapped into, which we could have done a long time ago. So I would say definitely get your marketing down. Who are you going to sell to? What are you going to grow? Just because something grows well in your area doesn't mean that you're going to be able to sell it. There's certain products that have a high profit margin, but do you know people that are going to buy them? Are you in a market that's flooded with those? Are you going to be competing with other people to sell those? These are, these are definite things to take into consideration when you're starting your farm. Let me think, Steve, other hurdles that we've experienced. I can't stress enough having a good team, having people that you can trust and people that work well together, and the people that excel in the areas that they work in. The basic communication of are you going to leave for the weekend? Who's responsible for taking care of something? One of the biggest things that we've experienced that was a definite drawback for us was leaving somebody in charge of the farm. When we took a small vacation in November, we hadn't been away from the farm for quite a long time. It had been a couple of years. And the person left the water running. He was topping the system off and left the water running for 2.5, 3 days, and did 100% water change on a system that was thriving. And when we came back, it took us a long time to get the pH back to where it needed to be. So you've got to be able to trust people to run your farm if you're not going to be there to do it. That's a big deal too.
What oh, I lost my train of thought for a second. Hold on.
Those are some good insights. That actually that advice transcends almost any business when it comes to trust and the people and being involved and from a true sense of what they want to be doing. And I don't see why feeding and giving medicine to all the people around the world would not be something that somebody's truly interested in. But I'm sure there's enough of them that yes, I can see how that's
absolutely. And another part is that Ken and I have experienced in the last 5 years that we are such an integral part of the system. We are so part of it that when we walk in, not only can we sense with our senses what's going on with the system. If there's an imbalance, from the very second that we walk into the farm, but also we notice that our mood has a lot to do, and our energy has a lot to do with how the plants grow as well, and what's going on. So yeah, this is a natural, ecosystem. This is a living, thriving ecosystem, and we are as much of a part of it as the fish and the plants and the microbes. So that's a big part of it too.
We actually had some questions from chat here. So do you recommend separate systems for veg systems versus flowering systems, as far as leafy greens versus flowering and fruiting? And then if so, what differences would you recommend for those systems?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, primarily we grow leafy greens and any high nitrogen loving plants. But something that actually Steve has just got me interested in within the last couple of months is the dual root zone system. And that is making a huge difference with our fruiting plants. They always did really well in the media beds. So I would tend to grow our peppers and our tomatoes, cucumbers, all of that in our media beds. Not only because they're long-term crops that need to be, have trellises or yo-yos or vines, but also because those are easier to manipulate than your deep water culture. And now something that we're experimenting with is the dual root zone, which is something that I am relatively new with, but is working out really, really well. I tend to look at our deep water culture as a giant conveyor belt. So anything that goes in there, depending on what kind of cycle we're on. In the summer, we can get down to a 3.5 week cycle. Usually in the winter, we're at about a 6 or 7 week cycle. But it's like a conveyor belt. It's constantly, we're constantly harvesting every week, constantly planting every week. So it makes sense to grow your lettuce in there, and your cut and come again, such as your mizunas and tatsois and pak choys and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I do a lot of my herbs too in the media beds, because those take a little bit longer to propagate. They take a little bit longer to grow, and they tend to, a lot of things like valerian root or something to where you're using the root. That's gonna take a long time to grow. So and they grow better than there. So
Yep. I did a lot of testing when back working at the aquaponics source, and we did a lot of root crops in both media beds and wicking beds, and found that the wicking beds had always the best, and it followed shortly behind the media beds for any kind of root type crop. Um, Handful of exceptions, you can do cilantro root. Some is actually used medicinally, and grows great in rafts or something like that. But um, that grows really well that way.
Celery. Celery does really
Yep.
well.
How is your new cucumbers and stuff that you started? I was
Oh,
out
they're
there
doing
not that
awesome.
long ago.
They're doing really good. Uh,
Once they hit that water layer, man, in the next 24 hours, you can visually see the difference. It's crazy.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's very exciting. Like I said, this is something that it's very new to me, but it makes so much sense. It makes a lot of
And
sense.
for those of you guys that aren't familiar with it, I know we haven't touched on it in many, many episodes, but dual root zones basically provide the best of both worlds. So you get three separate advantages of it too. So first off, the bottom part of the root zone is the same as a media bed. It's a flood and drain layer that provides all the gas exchange and all the aquatic microbes that you get in a normal flood and drain media bed. The upper half is all of your terrestrial microbes, your fungi, your mycorrhizae, which is extremely important for woodier crops, bushes, trees, cannabis, peppers, anything that has a woodier, heavier structure to it. That is, that anything that produces wood, basically, for lack of a better explanation. Not 100%, but we'll say 85 to 95% of the time. Um, and by providing it both with terrestrial microbes, all those terrestrial microbes are providing different compounds of different nutrients to that plant, and as well as mycorrhizae layers. And the more research we do, the more that we understand that fungal networks and fungal hyphae are the primary inputs of nutrients into plants. So by combining that with the aquatic microbes, your nitrosoma, nitrospira, which you guys have traditionally been taught in aquaponics, but there's also all kinds of things that handle phosphorus and calcium and iron and other microbes that we haven't identified in the same generalized way yet. That people like Mammoth P and some of the other microbial companies are now getting out ahead of the curve and identifying some of this stuff and saying, hey, if you're seeding your stuff with any of these aquarium starters, which are your nitrification stuff, if you're doing plants, maybe you should use Mammoth P or some of these other ones that doing phosphorus or potassium, or they have Mammoth K now, and some of the other ones. I'm just using it as one example. There's many other microbial products out there that do similar things. I'm not just trying to push them specifically, but there's all these microbial networks that break down phosphorus, potassium, zinc, iron, molybdenum, what have you. And without those microbial networks, you don't get the proper inputs. And plants have evolved to work with soil networks, but there's all different types of microbes that break down the same nutrients in aquatics. That's why dual root zone allows for both of those types of, complete microbial networks that break down all those different types of nutrients and input in the plants both aquatically and terrestrially to have their separate inputs so that you're not putting the same type of nutrient in. That's why growing in a dual root zone system allows for such higher nutrient input per day in the plant, when you're talking total ppm levels and microbial exposure. It also allows for higher resistance when it comes to microbials because of the fact that it is exposed to both aquatic and terrestrial microbes, so that plant's going to have a healthier immune system, so that when it's exposed to fungal spores or bacterial infection, it's not going to react the same way because it has a stronger immune system. It's going to be able to overcome those challenges and give you the plants that you're looking for. That's why we rely so heavily on that, on fruiting, flowering, and heavy feeding crops. Why we go towards those, or even any type of woodier crop. To be honest with you, for the dual root zone, for those mycorrhizal networks, honestly, more than anything else, because they provide such a wide range of nutrient inputs directly into the plant. Then the fungal networks exchange sugars from the plant with nutrients that the fungus isolates. And that they basically use, almost think of it the way that like the stock exchanges. They exchange money for stocks, and then basically they're trading sugar for what the fungus can provide, which is a nutrient. So if you think of it in that kind of way, or I've spoken about this on multiple other podcasts about the whole restaurant allegory. It's all very similar, where they're all trading things to make sure everything runs smoothly and everything operates smoothly and everyone gets a paycheck at the end of the day, everyone gets fed, and everyone gets whatever they need to do their job on a given day.
Absolutely.
Sorry to go off on a rant.
No, that's great. That's great. But also, if you're putting something like tomatoes into your media bed without using dual root zone, you're gonna be doing a lot of work trimming off those suckers and taking care of the extra nitrogen that plant is taking up as well. So
absolutely.
And you're not going to be getting as much fruit as you should.
Not to mention, so just through my own testing running on side, for those of you who don't know, I used to work for the aquaponic system and the aquaponic source. I'm sorry, the aquaponic system. Sorry.
One of them.
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of artwork all day. I'll leave it at that. Anyways, we had 3 700-gallon systems that we'd run side by side tests on for 1 to 3 months, depending on what we were testing. Sometimes 6 months, actually, for some of the tests that we did. And what we found was, I'm sorry, what was it we were talking about again? Start out with
you were working
tomatoes.
Too many dabs beforehand. Okay.
Much nicer.
So with the tomatoes, we'll just use this as an example. We ran tomatoes in the far back in the raft and the dual root zone. In the middle, we just did in the dual root zone. I'm sorry, in the far back, we did in the media bed and in the raft. In the middle, we did in the raft and in the dual root zone and the media bed. And the front one, we did two dual root zone and just the media bed. And what we found was, we were also, in addition to that, the potassium, phosphorus, and silica uptake from the microbial bacteria and mycorrhizae in the soil layer, they were far more able to uptake silica, potassium, and phosphorus and produce much more fruit, and fruit that was larger and higher in bricks content in the one that had 2 dual root zone versus 1 dual root zone, a media and a control, and just the 2 media and a control. The control being the raft, obviously, and all 3 of them, the dual root zone outcompeted it by almost 38% on average. The one produced 44% more fruit and flowers. It was like 48% more flowers on the tomato plant, 44% more fruit, and 38% more fruit to term, fruit that turned red, basically.
Did you notice a difference in the taste?
Yeah, so the biggest things that we noticed when testing in aquaponics, in fact, we focused just on taste because we had the lady that used to run the company that used to work for brought in a guy that was a tomato expert. He was one of the biggest tomato guys on YouTube and one of the best tomato experts in the country, top 20 for sure. And he said that, he gave a really good speech, and he was looking at the some of the nutrient analysis that we had sent him from our lab, and he came to the conclusion that the silica and the chloride levels were too low, and those two are resulting in a lower sugar level in the fruit production. So once we focused on the chloride levels and the silica levels in the fruit, immediately they started being sweeter. And for those of you who don't understand what I'm talking about, for chloride, you're looking for about 110 parts per million. And for silica, you're looking at least 80 parts per million, higher if possible. You can run up to 200 parts per million, but 80 to 200 parts per million silica and 110 plus minus parts per million for chloride.
So these
and to get
are
maximum chlorophyll and sugar production out of your plants. And that could be tomatoes, peppers, cannabis, you name it. You'll get a better flavor out of it.
Cucumbers.
Steve,
Go ahead.
these are products that you're talking about that you buy and sell.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
These are products that you buy and add silica products.
The the silica products. What you're asking about the silica products?
Yeah, is it actual product that you buy?
So I use primarily what I do is I alternate for my pH up. I'll alternate between a calcium carbonate or a dolomite product, which is calcium magnesium carbonate, and a potassium silica product. And by balancing my potassium and my silica and my calcium, because when I add the potassium silicate, I'm not adding calcium or potassium, which have to be kept in balance. It allows me to add something that doesn't need to be necessarily kept in ratio with the other one, which is calcium carbonate, or dolomite, which is calcium magnesium carbonate, which does need to be kept in balance or to have proper uptake. So let me simplify all that because that sounds kind of like gibberish. When you're doing an aquaponics system, you want to have a 3-to-1 calcium to phosphorus ratio. And if you get outside of that, you will get strange plant growth because of the way that the aquatic microbes act in your aquaponic system. When you go outside of that, you're either going to get lanky plant growth, or you're going to get not proper flowering. You're going to get too dense flower growth, node growth. If you go denser than that, it just depends on what you're doing. But in general, that's the ratio you're looking for. Now, you also want to do a 2-to-1 calcium to magnesium ratio. And if you get outside of that, you have a hard time for your plants in your system to transport the nutrients inside the system properly around the plant. So potassium, magnesium, zinc, molybdenum, boron, whatever, has a hard time being physically transported from the root system up to the rest of the plant if that's out of whack, if that's out of balance. And those are two ratios that are very important when you're doing aquaponics. And some stuff that isn't really talked about much that I teach heavily in my classes that I don't really hear much else in the industry is that 3-to-1 phosphorus to calcium and 2-to-1 magnesium to calcium ratio. Or I'm sorry, calcium to magnesium. I apologize. 2-to-1 calcium to magnesium ratio. Let me correct myself.
So, I want to ask one, sorry, one question though, about the dual root.
Yeah.
Do you control the humus content?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? Just a little. Get talk beforehand, like at the beginning and the end of when you talk, because of your delay, the audio level cuts off. So if you can give yourself a bit of a delay, like kind of mumble or say something in the beginning before your actual question, and then at the end, it'll help me hear you better.
Oh, so what I was asking you is if you control the humus content of the dual root zone
If I control
container.
the what content? I'm sorry.
Humus.
Humus. So humic acid helps a lot with nitrogen and a little bit to some of the other nutrients, but it still doesn't fix everything. It does solve some issues, but it doesn't solve everything.
So do you actually control the? I'm not talking about humic acid. I'm talking about the humus content of your soil mixture.
So humics generally add nitrogen to the system in general.
Okay. Now I want to add something here. Before the organic movement, it was actually called humus farming, right?
Hmm.
Humus content with soil. If you get the humus content up around 70, it provides the perfect one for aquaponics.
It definitely provides a good ionic balance for sure, but it definitely has a
For
few
me,
things few shortcomings, I guess.
for my water source, for
Rainwater.
my personal water source.
So rainwater has no carbonate hardness and no mineral stability. So you have to add mineral stability to it.
For my personal water source, because I'm pumping from the ground
Oh, for
in
micronutrient source, you're saying.
yeah, in Barbados for me. So I
For a
get
micronutrient source, I would do either in Barbados specifically, I would give your I would go collect seaweed on the beach, give it a good freshwater rinse, and then dry it and do your own do your own maxi crop that way. Do your own seaweed mix. Dry
yeah,
it in the sun after a freshwater rinse, and that'll provide a lot of micronutrients to your system.
yeah, I do a fermented strap.
And ferments are even better because the lactobacillus and other fermented microbes, anaerobic microbes, provide a lot of nutrients to the system. Marty and
Yeah,
I are both huge proponents of that on a
I'm
regular basis.
a big fan of that too.
Yeah,
yeah.
it helps a lot. I know I've given Jessica a couple of my secret recipes because we're friends, and I'm kind of excited to see some of the stuff that they end up cooking up out of some of the stuff that I've told them and taught them. So
We're pretty excited about that. Give us a couple weeks.
So why don't you tell us, Jessica, a little bit about some of your IPM and some of your other, like, I guess, day to day or weekly things you'd say are more important as far as what's involved in running a farm week to week.
Awesome. So one of the main things, I guess, is running an aquaponics farm. You gotta clean your filters. You gotta do something with your fish waste. And one of the things that we do is we actually remineralize it. So when we clean our filters, we put them into mineralization tanks and add oxygen to them and remineralize them and add them back to our system, which is an awesome way to use, I guess, all of the waste.
Can you go into that a little further and explain to people what remineralization is?
So basically, it's taking your anaerobic fish waste and you're adding oxygen to it. So you're remineralizing it. You're getting you're getting more. You're re-adding the minerals to that anaerobic waste, and we put that back into our system. We put it back in to our media beds. And also into our DWC, so that the lost minerals that happen are remineralized. It's a way of using reusing something that we would normally dispose of, or some people would dispose of, and that's awesome. So we do that once a week. We clean out our filters on Mondays because our retail space is closed. It's kind of a stinky process sometimes. So yeah, we do that once a week. And as far as IPM goes, we also do that once a week. We've experimented with a couple different things. We've been at one point we were 100% beneficial insects, and we were using a lot of ladybugs and lacewings and predatory wasps and the like. And what we found is that yes, it did work, but our customers, our restaurants especially, were more upset about getting ladybugs in their salad mix than they were about getting aphids. So that didn't work out for us. So our general IPM, or integrated pest management, right now is making sure that we keep up on it. We do it once a week. I know that a lot of farms will only spray when they notice pests. And what we've noticed is that doesn't work for us. I know that pests can build up a resistance to sprays if you use them often. So what we do is we switch up. So we switch up between a soap spray. We use a MP'd soap spray, and then we switch off with it. We use Azotrol, which is neem based, which you have to be very careful with fish. But we switch up. So we do a spray once a week, and making sure that we switch up what we're using so that the pests don't develop a resistance to that. It's just something you go in and we have problem spots, we have hot spots and areas that we have to make sure that are that we're keeping up on. But to be honest with you, I think aphids is our main problem. I've seen white flies on the outside of the greenhouse, very rarely on the inside, and I think that's our main problem, which I think that most people that I know that have farms run into is the aphids. And there are different types of aphids. But yeah, just keeping up on it, making sure that it's something that you don't let slide. You know how aphids reproduce. You let it go a day and your population is doubled, tripled, quadrupled. It's pretty intense. So that's what we do. And we also, I've noticed that we released about 2 years ago, we released a predatory wasp in the greenhouse, and that's something that comes back every year. I just noticed them for the first time the other day. They come back every year, which is awesome. So they come in and help out. We definitely have, ladybugs that come in and help out as well too. So that is what we do. But just making sure that you're up on top of it. It's something that you have to, you have to do weekly. If you let it slide, that's when you start getting problems.
We had a question from Chad. What's the best media to start leafy greens seeds in before transferring to rafts?
So we started with plugs. We use an iHort plug, which right now I think that basically consists of let's see what's in those. There's some earthworm castings. I think there's some biochar in there right now. There used to be peat moss in there. I think there's very little peat moss. And then a polymer that holds it all together. So these are plugs that we have trays that have 338 cells in them. And the company that we get these from is actually local to us. So we can reuse our trays. We take them down there, they fill them up. And it works for us. I know a lot of people use, their own media. I know people use coconut coir, all kinds of different things. But the plugs that we use come from a company called iHort, which is local to us in the local area, and that works best for us. We use a vacuum seeder as well. So the one that we have fits over our trays. And
do you want to explain to people what a vacuum seeder is? I know I never saw one, so I took your farm course.
Oh, really? So a vacuum seeder is a way of seeding where you do not have to do it by hand. Basically what it is it's a box, and the top of it have holes that fit directly over the holes in the plugs that we use. So basically our trays have 338 cells, and each one of those cells has a hole in the very center of it. And the box that goes over the top of it has a piece of stainless steel that has a hole drilled into it. We plug a vacuum into it, and the vacuum, what it does is it obviously sucks. We pour the seeds onto there, and it sucks a seed into every hole. And then the excess seeds are poured off. And when we unplug the vacuum, when it's put directly over the tray, a seed will fall directly into each hole of our tray. So it basically takes our hand seeding down from 20 minutes a tray to maybe a minute and a half, using the vacuum seeder, and it's awesome. It works really, really well. If you have a commercial farm, it's something you definitely want to look into, depending on how much seeding you're doing every week. It used to take me about a day and a half to do our seeding. Now we can get it done in a couple hours. So.
Yeah, that was one of the coolest things I've saw. I took the aquaponic farm course with Gina, which is the same course that is taught with Ken and Jessica out at Ouroboros, and learned a whole lot of stuff about back when I was still learning about the commercial aspect of it.
Yeah, no, it saves a lot of time. And after 3 years of seeding by hand, I was over it. I told Ken, if we don't get one of these, I'm quitting.
Do you want to talk about anything else maybe you learned with that class? Maybe other things, maybe other highlights you have about why people should take your aquaponic farm course, and over some of the other stuff that's out there, or some of the other things you guys emphasize or teach in your class that might be more emphasized or taught in more detail in your class?
Yeah, it's real and it's raw. I mean, you get to learn a lot of our mistakes. So you get to learn a lot of mistakes that you don't have to make for yourself. Not only that, but it's held at a commercial farm. So the farm is right there. We can show you hands-on what we do, how we harvest, how we plant, how we seed. Everything is right there. If you need an example, we'll take you out into the farm and show you how it's done. And I can't stress enough, just learning the mistakes that people in the industry have made over the last 5-10 years, it helps out a lot. You don't have to make the mistakes. We've made them for you.
Is there anything else you'd like to, I guess, mention about your classes, or other things that you've learned along the way, or maybe how you got started in aquaponics to begin with, or I know it's kind of a wide range of topics.
That is a wide range. Well, I've been farming pretty much my whole life. I mean, I've been doing, working small organic farms, have some hydroponic experience. But I think, honestly, to tell you the truth, it was a Will Allen video that Ken watched. I think it was titled "Man Grows a Million Pounds of Food on 2 acres of land" or something like that. And it made sense. I mean, it worked.
He's the guy from Growing Power, yeah?
Yeah, he is. He's awesome.
Okay.
If you haven't seen any of his videos, definitely check him out. So yeah, it's been a passion of mine. This is what I've been into. And yeah, I don't know. I like to grow things.
Yeah,
I like to be in the greenhouse. I like to be hands-on.
I had a comment as well as on something that you mentioned earlier. You're talking about the mood of your plants and how that affects the way they live. And I thought that I would bring up another video, which is called "The Secret Life of Plants."
I have that book. That was one of the first books that I read when I was.
Yes, and they made a film in the 70s in which Stevie Wonder does the music, and he sings, and you can see him singing about the secret life of plants. And it is truly something that I'm amazed that this knowledge is out there. But you and anybody else who so feels that their plants are affected by their mood is not crazy. That has been proven on a galvanometer. The electrical impulse is a real thing, and they can even feel you when you experience something separated from them in the spooky time and space. The exact same second, those plants that you grow truly are connected to the vibrations that you put out there.
No, absolutely, and the water as well. There's been studies
like Dr. Emoto showing
exactly.
how
There's been studies done where they play certain music to water, and they look at the molecules. And there was something I heard one time about how they played Elvis's Heartbreak Hotel, and the actual molecules made a broken heart.
That's wild. Are you familiar with Dr. Emoto?
Absolutely.
Yes, and he shows that quantum mechanical, that metaphysical connection between consciousness and the physical world. And for us as bodies of mostly water, and for plants as bodies of mostly water, living in a world where matter is just slowed down vibration.
Absolutely. No, we are definitely into the metaphysical aspects. One thing that I have noticed, I actually had a discussion with a guy that we gave a tour to today. He was asking about if we played music to the plants. And my answer is yes, we do. And we've experimented with, classical music and with other types of music. And from what I understand and from what I've gotten is that as long as the music that you're playing genuinely makes you happy, that the plants pick up on that. So
yeah, I think it's your happiness that they're most concerned with. In fact, I think that one of the best things to do for your plants is to give them little kisses.
Yes, absolutely.
Give your plants little kisses, and I think that they really enjoy that one.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I noticed too. I noticed when we have tours with children, when the children come in and they are running around the plants, and they're younger kids, and they're like little fairies. And I notice absolutely that within the day or two that they've been there, that the plants are genuinely more happy, and that they are more receptive, and they grow different. That's exciting.
And on that notion, plants really are the most noble form of life on earth, for they seek nothing to die for them to exist. They are when people say that they are the sun, we all live because of the energy gathered by photosynthesis that the plants have chemically converted into something that we can build our bodies and move our bodies with. The energy that beats our hearts and moves our muscles is all something that they have gathered so humbly for us. And whether it's from them or the animals that have eaten them, it's from the sun ultimately. But the plant, yes, the plant feels you and reveals you to the illumination that is life. And I think it's awesome that there's people out there.
And in turn, when you eat that, it gives you life as well, and it gives you a better quality life.
Yes, and that's why I say every time before I eat, whether it's animal or vegetable, I'm just gonna throw this out here in my little time on this podcast. But I say this prayer. I say, I would like to thank all the life that's here sacrificed before me, so that I may live another day, and what I may do with this day. I would like to thank all the time and all the people, all the efforts and all the culture that it took to bring this meal together. And I would like to thank you all for sharing this meal with me. Alakazam.
Beautiful.
When you think about that more though too, though, like think about all the vegetables and shit, like think about all the cannabis that we have. Like without a couple thousand years of people working with that plant, we wouldn't have big dense nugs. We'd still have a tiny little flower structure. You know what I mean? We wouldn't have any of the stuff that we even smoke or use or eat. Or look at corn. Corn grew from something that used to look like wheat, and now it's something big enough that you can eat. You know what I mean? It's totally crazy. You know what I mean?
One thing I hear from customers that come into the retail space when they look at our display, they look at our lettuce that we're selling, they say that looks too beautiful to eat. I just want to look at it. And that's one thing that comes to my mind is when you really love something, you let it grow, right? If you like something, if you like a flower, you're gonna pick it. But if you love it, you're gonna let it grow.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
Well,
this has been an awesomely spiritual episode.
Yes,
I think there's a lot of love here
between both of you.
I think the plants feeling it too. I think they're just thriving and surviving out there in the whatever, whether it's tropical heat or whether it's cold San Francisco weather. I'm sure those plants are digging this as much as we are.
Absolutely.
All three of you.
I want to add one more thing, though. Okay?
What was that? I'm sorry?
Yeah, I want to add one more thing.
Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead, brother.
The job of the aquaponics is to tie the watt, the basic unit of electrical consumption, to the actual photosynthesis, the process of photosynthesis. That's the job of the aquaponics. To efficiently tie the watt to the process of photosynthesis.
Absolutely.
Very nice.
It's so nice to have people from all over the world on this podcast.
Yeah.
Not only this episode, but just all the different episodes we've done so far. We've had people from all over. Writing this, I've had people come from as far away as Ukraine and Slovenia, and I've had people message me from Jordan and China and Japan and Indonesia and the Philippines, where they're killing people right now for smoking weed. It's legal to shoot people in the street if they have a joint in their hand. That's perfectly legal in the Philippines. And this guy took the time to write me, to tell me he's growing aquaponics in Jordan, where this guy can be beheaded, and all over the world. Think about that when you're smoking a joint, like. And what if you're in a legal country or in a legal state or medicinal herb, medicinal state, or God, if you're in a blessed enough to be in a legal state like California or Colorado, there's people out there that still can be murdered for simply trying to grow or enjoy this plant that we all enjoy, or even trying to do aquaponics. They associate the word ponics with cannabis. Mm-hmm. Even asking other people about aquaponics can be an issue in certain countries. Remember that when you're talking about this kind of stuff, and remember that when you're practicing this. This is an episode that's been a little more powerful than our normal episodes are, and it's really cool to have this kind of discussion on the show. And one of the reasons why I really enjoy doing this show every week. How many other shows do you get this kind of feedback on? I really appreciate getting some of the guests that we have on the show and people that take the time to join us, give us their own experience in this, agricultural industry.
Absolutely, Steve. And that our primary growing goal is growing food. But I would like to give a shout out to the cannabis industry for all of the technology that has come out of it. I mean, lighting and nutrients and everything. It's been a journey that I think we as an industry would not be where we're at right now if it wasn't for the cannabis industry.
Well, one of the things that I would love to see be translated over to the aquaponics industry from the cannabis industry, and that I really want to spend this next year pushing on the aquaponics industry and emphasizing in the industry and pushing into the people that are involved in the Aquaponics Association, is we need to get onto a set pesticide list and a set nutrient list, the same way that legal cannabis does. Okay, so for those of you unaware, those of you that operate in Colorado or Oregon are already fully aware of this. Oregon and Colorado have a list of pesticides that you're allowed to use in cannabis. And it would be wonderful to see a federally registered list of pesticides that were registered to be usable legally in aquaponics. And as long as your products didn't register positive for any of those, that you could legally sell that under an aquaponics label that could be registered separately from organic or from regular produce, or even in addition to organic aquaponic. You know what I mean? Having a separate label.
Regular produce.
Exactly.
I think that's where we're heading. I think that's where we're heading right now as far as the aquaponic label goes. It is by far, by the way that we grow, it exceeds organic standards.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that I love about the cannabis industry, is that the cannabis industry, as far as pesticides, also accounts not only for consumption and how your body would uptake it if you digested it when it was sprayed onto a plant, within a week of harvest, which is, for those of you that aren't aware, most of your pesticides are allowed up to within a week of harvest, in case you weren't aware of that. Now, in cannabis, almost all people that grow cannabis stop spraying damn near anything within 2 weeks of harvest, in case you weren't aware of that. Now, a handful of unscrupulous cannabis growers will spray up till a week of harvest. Now, because of the advent of pesticide residue testing and microbial testing, they're getting nailed to the wall on that shit. And if you're one of these unscrupulous growers, you're going to get nailed for that.
As it should
What
be.
we need to do with the aquaponics industry is have a set list of aquaponic approved pesticides that we know will not affect human, fish, microbial, or plant health when used as directed, assuming they're being used as directed within a certain ppm levels, which is easy enough to test for when you're talking about consumer health as far as that's concerned. Super easy to test for.
Absolutely.
Are people using the registered list of pesticides or nutrients that are allowed within the industry? Now, cannabis in Colorado and Oregon is being held to that standard. If you use something that's not allowed on their list, you're immediately banned from sale. You can't sell to the medical, you can't sell the recreational, and you're screwed out of the whole industry. You're immediately blacklisted from the whole thing. You can't sell anywhere.
Well, that brings up another point as well, Steve, is that a lot of let's say soil-based organic farms, it doesn't matter what you put into the soil before you plant, and that has a lot to do with source water too. In aquaponics, is that
absolutely
what you add to your water once you add it, not what is actually in the source water itself.
And you're blessed enough to be on well water, but unfortunately not everyone enough is. And setting some kind of standard where saying, hey, look, your entrance level water going into the system should have this parts per million level for XYZ nutrient across the board, so that people going into the industry know, okay, this is the kind of filtration I need to have. This is the kind of filtration I need to have on my system when it's running, so that it does not exceed these XYZ nutrient levels. And I think that's some of the standards that are missing from the aquaponics industry that will absolutely help bring standardization, and not only standardization, but it'll help producers. If I give you a list of IPM sources, pest solutions that say, hey, this solves aphids, this solves thrips, this solves beetles, Japanese beetles, this solves whatever, caterpillars, whitefly, this solves whitefly. That gives you a source list of stuff. Okay, I'm an aquaponics producer. I can go to my federal government website. I can get a good list of stuff that I can buy from my local producer that can then solve the solution to my problem. Not only does it help my industry that I'm trying to help grow and thrive, that I'm passionate about because of how much it helps with water consumption, it also helps ensure that the other people that I'm doing what I'm doing are also holding to themselves to the similar standard, and also following by the same beliefs, and making sure that we're all on the same page. They're also not harming the industry or harming the producer in any way that's going to affect them the same way that I wouldn't want to. And it's setting out a simple like aquaponic permit or aquaponic producer permit or something along those lines that gives them a not only tells them they're not allowed to use certain things, but at the same token gives them the answers to the same problems we're told that they're not allowed to use, which is something that has to happen. If you tell someone no, you have to give them the solution. Because if you tell them someone no, it doesn't matter what the question is, you have to give them the solution. Because if you don't, you're an asshole. That's the definition of an asshole. This is someone that tells someone they can't do XYZ without giving them a solution or a positive, outcome to that thing. That's literally the definition of an asshole. You can be more PC or polite if you want on that, but that in my opinion. So if we provide these people with the reasonable solution, sorry about that. If you provide people with the solution to the problem and tell them what the problem is, they have no excuse not to do the correct answer or the correct solution. And by doing so, you can hold them to a higher account because you provided both the problem and the solution to them, and they have no reason not to follow your direction.
Absolutely.
Sorry to rant again.
That's great.
Yo,
It's not a rant. That's on the cutting edge, huh?
Go ahead.
You're on the cutting edge of the standardization of this kind of thing. So I like to hear that, you know?
It's just something I'm passionate about, and something where I've seen it work very well for other industries, and how it worked well for curtailing some of the people that were trying to take unnecessary and borderline or completely illegal shortcuts, or using things like, I'll use a great example of this. Eagle 20 in the cannabis industry. Eagle 20 is a great fungicide. It's a great fungicide if you're growing vegetables and you can spray them and you're being consumed orally. It's totally fine. You'll have no problems with it. It's 100% approved for that and has been for 60 years. The problem is if you spray that on cannabis and then you smoke it, when you introduce the heat from a lighter, it separates the arsenic from the other thing and basically isolates the arsenic, and you can actually die from arsenic poisoning from Eagle 20. So there's certain chemicals and certain insecticides that are specific to cannabis that are much more pose a much more hazardous toxicity than other pesticides would, because of the fact that it's combusted. That's why tobacco and cannabis specifically need to have, honestly, to be honest with you, what I'd love to see ultimately out of this whole industry is a separate USDA classification for inhalants and include mullein, cannabis, and tobacco. All three of those, or anything else that someone would ever possibly consider smoking, to be honest with you, in that category. Because look, there's no reason. I'm a big proponent. Nothing should be illegal. I don't care how crazy or how much a drug can mess you up. Everything should be legal, but at the same time, everything should be regulated to the point where pesticides aren't going to kill you and all this other stuff shouldn't kill you. And if you're smart enough to do a reasonable dosage, it's up to yourself to decide what to do. You know, I'm far enough left to where I'm almost borderline libertarian. You know, I think when it comes to personal intake, you know, that's your own responsibility to decide what you put in your own body. And people need to have on that token, people need to have the correct information to decide what to input into their body. And without proper information on things like inhalants, which is why I'm so passionate about why cannabis and tobacco and a handful of other herbs like mullein should be considered into that inhalant classification, where they account for these inhalant type things where combustion is accounted for in the things, and this also spills over to concentrates. So think about it in the ways of rosin, or think of it in the way of like a CO2 oil or dab, any kind of dab concentrate. You know, you're concentrating that pesticide if you're doing it. So if you're concentrating that pesticide, it's even more toxic. So this is the reason why those particular handful of crops, you know, it's maybe 3 to 10 crops, you know, worldwide, need to be isolated. Canna being another, I'm just thinking off the top of my canna being a fourth one. Needs to be isolated and separated and say, hey, these crops need to have a separate, higher standard to their, crop, not only growth, but harvest and harvest level residue, because of the threat that they threat they pose to consumer health.
Yo, I have one comment on that. As the producers, we all set the standard of what the consumer seeks. If we want there to be a standard, all we got to do is offer it. The consumer is seeking the best that they can get. So I propose that what Steve's talking about over here, with a certain set of essentially what he's calling regulations, but I'm really just calling standards. We start and the governments will catch up.
Exactly.
Because they get the money from the industry, and if we are the producers of shit that they ain't making themselves, sorry, I'm on the radio, of things they ain't making themselves, well then we set the standard. The government catches up because they want the money where the industry is coming from, and the consumer wants the best. So therefore, it's up to us really whether or not we want to set our own standards at the level in which Steve is talking about here. And I think he's right on the right level, which we want the best for our people of planet Earth, because we all got love for everybody up in here. Don't you know what I'm saying?
Exactly. It's up to the industry to lead the way on this type of stuff in order for us. If we don't, who will? No one will. If we don't, because you think the Trump government's going to lead the way on this kind? No, they aren't. You know, yeah, exactly. I mean, they're not going to lead the way on anything.
We have been leading the way from the beginning.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep. On the breaking floor.
So let's continue to lead.
So do you want to tell us a little bit more about some of the other things you feel like are, important for people either looking into start a farm, or, day-to-day life, or, other advice you have for people looking to start a new farm that they might not be able to find elsewhere?
You're going to start a farm, and you better believe that you're going to eat, drink, and breathe it. This is your life. You're going to be doing this all the time. This is an integral part of our family. My child is a big part of this business as well. She helps out. She understands that, when you first start out too, you're going to be working a lot. You don't get holidays off. You don't get, work all the time. Plants grow, farm.
Well, it sounds like you're teaching her some of the most quintessential lessons of learning to meet her food on the real level of where it comes from. All those children out there who have just been told it comes from the grocery store, and you got to get these tickets of a fluctuating value in order to get at that. She might be far more empowered when it comes to any instability that might affect such large communities of people who are dependent on such specified adaptations.
No, absolutely. And she grew up working a farmer's market. She learned how to barter and how to communicate with people and how to, talk the value of a product. This is something she's been doing for a long time.
And grow the product, sounds like.
Growing the product, actually.
That's really where the value is created.
Absolutely. What was your original question as far as advice for starting a farm?
We're trying to help everybody get on the level you are, so that people can attain autonomy and people that can prosper in the process of doing so for those around them who are still learning. So yeah. Yes, what simple tips? Basically was Steve's question. Yeah.
Dream big, but be realistic in the same sense. One of the things I hear when people are starting their farms is they have all these ideas, and this is great, and this is going to happen. But realistically, how are you going to make that happen? Action. I want to see what you're doing. Show us what you're doing. There's a lot of talk out there. Show us what you're doing. And start small. Know what you're doing before you start a commercial size farm. Have your customers ready. Have your customers lined up. Anybody can grow a product, but to be successful as far as making money and having a thriving business, you've got to sell your product. Farming doesn't make you money. Selling your product does. And let's see.
We had a question from chat. What's the general feeling about building material standardization of the aquaponics industry? For example, I see a lot of raft materials being used.
I would. The rafts we use are food grade. A lot of people use Dow Blue Board. That is not food grade.
Yeah, Dow Blue Board has a flame retardant in it. So anyone or any company that's selling you that isn't fully educated on what's in it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, we use a food grade raft, but
you guys use beaver boards, yeah?
We do. We use beaver boards. We've been using them for 5 years now too. So we get the occasional raft that breaks with certain overload or whatever. But no, we've been using the same boards for 5 years. I love them.
Yeah, I mean, and it's always about having a few extras on hand. You know, you're always going to have a few break or a few accidents or a few, ones that just end up being manufactured funny or whatever.
Yeah, we've started out too. I mean, they make all different sizes as well. So we have, they're all 2x4 boards, but we do have 18 holes. We have 28 holes, 36 holes, 72 holes. So it depends on what you're planning. If you're going to plant something that's super dense, a lot of our super baby heads that we sell go into 72s. A lot of our, red vein sorrel things are going to be cut really, really small, go into 72s. And then if we're, growing out a normal baby size head, that'll go into 36s. But our adult size heads, they go into 18s. So it depends on what you're growing. But yeah, they're definitely looking to that. I would not use Delft Blue board. I think that's pretty gross, but that's just me.
Now, do you have any other tips or tricks or any special, maybe anything that you learned that you can pass on to the audience that might help them with their grows or day-to-day kind of stuff?
I'm sure I'll think of it right after I get off air. I don't know. I mean, if this is something you're passionate about, then do it. If it's, I don't consider this work. This is something that I absolutely love to do. Like I said, I can't stress enough. Know what you're doing and have a good team. Don't hesitate to ask questions. Ask people questions. People have made these mistakes, so you don't have to do it. There's a lot of good information out there. There's a lot of misinformation out there as well. But there's a lot of people that are passionate about this and can teach you a lot of things. We offer a lot of courses as well that we're very passionate about. I know you teach the aquachronic classes and the medicinal herbs classes. If that's something that you're interested in doing, yeah, take a class, take 10 classes, take them, take a lot of different classes.
That's definitely something that I realized, especially working on the aquaponics source, is that like it doesn't matter who you take the class from, but go take a class. Go take a seminar. Go learn all the different aspects of aquaponics, because you might get a really good rundown on a particular section of it in a YouTube video or something, but you're not going to get the whole picture. You're not going to get all the different components that go into running a system from beginning to end. And that's one of the biggest things that I would say. Like, it doesn't matter if you're taking a $50 class or a $500 class or a $1,000 class. Go take a class from somebody, anybody. Don't take everything they can to heart. Obviously take it from someone like me or Ouroboros or some of the other more accredited farms out there that have been around for a long time or been teaching for a long time, or doing some of the more advanced stuff out there. But even if you don't take it from one of us, go take it from somebody so that you have a good understanding of all the beginning to end. I know when I worked for the aquaponics source, at least 4 times I had someone call me up that had a full aquaponics farm, full greenhouses, the whole 9. No idea what, how to balance pH, no idea how to do iron, and it's like how did you spend that amount of money and then have no idea how to do some of the most basic stuff in a system? But this stuff happens. And it's because you weren't aware that it was an issue until it was right in front of your face.
Yep. Learn from other people's mistakes. Take a lot of classes. And if somebody out there says there's only one way to do it,
they don't know what they're talking about.
They don't know what they're talking about.
Yep.
Nope. There's so many different climates and so many different issues. And
yep.
my greenhouse, the 2 systems in our greenhouse, we have 2 30,000 gallon systems running side by side with the same water, everything, and they are completely different. They have lives of their own. So yeah, there are different issues that everybody is going to be facing. So.
Absolutely, and it could depend on how many fruiting crops versus veggie crops you have. the species of veggie crops, unless they're completely identical, you're not going to get the same result.
Nope.
If you have even having different types of lettuce, for example, can cause a dramatic difference. And I've seen this personally doing consulting. Enormous differences in calcium level, phosphorus level, magnesium level, silica level in terms of what they uptake per week, because the varieties are different.
And even
So
basic pH. I mean, even
yep.
even the pH. Yep.
Yep, the microbial life in your system will vary dramatically from system to system. This is why it's so important, at least once a month to get, send out, spend the 40 or $50 per system to send out once a month to get your total ppm levels, because it will help you. You can adjust for those nutrients. Even if it's once every 30 days, it still gives me something to aim for so that I can make my adjustments over the course of the next 30 days and help try and balance some of the systems out. I'll get better flavor. I'll get better production. I'll get better, heavier weights. I'll get faster growth. Whatever it is that you're running short on, you can solve a lot of these issues that are kind of, semi-common aquaponics production issues, where they're not quite hitting target, but they're everything's growing well. It looks great. It's producing, but you're not quite hitting the same targets as hydroponics, and that's really what I've emphasized in my teachings and stuff that I've tried to dial in, and running comparison. What we have in aquaponics is, and for those of you that aren't aware of this, so hydroponic producers go out there, they dump, hydroponic nutrients directly into the system, and then they're producing the vegetables. We are allying ourselves with microbial bacteria, all different types of microbials, both fungi and microbial, and using them to produce a high level of available nutrients, and dosing mostly in fish waste, but to a small percentage in some supplemental dosages, some chemical nutrients. And not by chemical, I don't necessarily mean synthetic. A lot of that is organic. Most of it's organic, but sometimes we use some non-organic minerals. It's just how it is. It's just what works best, or what mineral compounds are the best for the given situation. And we're able to provide things in extremely high bioavailability levels compared to the hydroponic systems, where both of them have, as far as what the plant needs to produce at maximum level, are the same, but maybe one is offering it at 200 parts per million, the other one's offering at 140 parts per million in an aquaponic system, just giving an example, versus a 200 parts per million in a hydroponic system, but the plant only needs 110 parts per million. So both of them are hitting the target, but you know what I mean? Both of them are hitting it equally.
One thing we've noticed, bringing up the difference between hydroponics and aquaponics, is that, hydroponics, wanting a very, very sterile environment, we're mimicking
Pythium.
a river, lake, a stream ecosystem. And so the more biodiversity that we actually have in our system, the more stable that it is.
Absolutely. That's why I push the dual root zone. It gives you even more biodiversity, because you get both the terrestrial and the aquatic.
I'm very
especially for trees. So I'm one of the, I don't know anyone else that's grown as many different species, and if someone would like to correct me, I'm happy to bow to them 100%. But I don't know, I've grown almost 35 different species of trees so far, and counting. And in aquaponics, and I found that if you give them a 2/3 soil layer to 1/3 flood and drain layer at the very bottom, and just make the very bottom of the root zone flood and drain, and make the upper 2/3 soil layer with a dosable, you basically top feed with system water, and that's it. It just gets the nitrogen and whatever else is in there. Occasionally these plants will need additional supplementation, or trees, but not very often. It's in a, only when they're flowering, to be honest with you. And silica. I'm very big on silica. I maintain at least 100 parts per million silica in all my systems. I found that it makes a night and day difference in my fungal outbreaks, especially aquaponic systems. I found whenever you're in a
cycle, right? Do you run that higher when you're fruiting or flowering?
Nitrogen?
No, your silica.
My silica? No, I run my silica constantly between 80 and 120 parts per million. I'll run it about 80 in vegetable systems and about 120 in cannabis systems. And those are my targets. And if I'm flirting with that plus minus 20 to 30 parts per million, I'm happy. Minus maybe 10 to 20, plus maybe 30 to 40. Um, um, I have systems that are as high as 200 parts per million silica that I have no problem. So as far as I can tell in my own internal testing over the past 3 years, I've never hit a toxicity level with silica. Silica is one of the most highest and bioavailable nutrients in soil. So if you're a soil grower, it's one of the nutrients that's constantly available that is very rarely mentioned when you're talking about soil chemistry, but is in high bioavailability high bioavailability levels and makes a big impact on plants' immune systems and plants' ability to fend off both fungal and bacterial infection so that your plants have a stronger immune system when it comes to powdery mildew, fungal infections, insect attack. It just makes the plants better able to fend off those and produce hormones and compounds that are otherwise distasteful to all three of those things that generally discourage plant growth.
Quartz.
So what I see here is that the good knowledge learned from experience from people like Jessica and Steve, and the good machine that Damien here is talking about putting together and making accessible for the world on the internet. If all this can come into a good conjunction in which people can go and find out either how to create something that's accessible for all people that works really well, and make their own sustained business from that, or just go about doing it, that the more compiled and integrated this knowledge gets into a form that more people can access, which is already what's happening in this very podcast, is what's going to liberate people from the dependencies upon poisonous foods and medicines, and bring them together around the table of the truly best.
And it's very inspiring. Very, very inspiring.
And on that note, too, for those of you that haven't seen it, True Aquaponics actually had a great post this week on powdery mildew and how to prevent it, both mineral-wise and treatment-wise. Both preventative and treatment-wise. He had a great post on his website that was pretty well shared on the aquaponics realm this week that I'd love to touch on. Just on that note, just wanted to mention that because it was one of the better written articles I've seen in a while. So
absolutely.
So I want to share something that happened to me this weekend. Right?
Go ahead.
It was the largest agricultural show on the island called AgroFest this weekend. So we took down an aquaponic system down there to show to the public. One thing you got to really understand with the aquaponics is, and the benefit is that you got the bacteria. Whereas if you're dealing with traditional land-based animals, bacteria got to multiply on the solid manure to consume it. But in aquaponics, you got the bacteria. So when the manure is created, you must immediately convert it to available farm, right? In a matter of minutes or hours. Whereas if you do base manure, it, as you know, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
That's a
I
great point that you bring up.
yeah, I find a lot
E.
of people.
coli. Go ahead.
Yeah, I find a lot of people don't understand that that's where the benefit for the farmer is, that you get into to grow a protein and immediately convert the waste into uh, input. Whereas in land, there's a long like in between collecting that manure and processing that manure, applying it to the plant. But because the and the water is removing that manure, collecting that manure and processing it immediately. that stable time is was allowed to be so profitable.
Absolutely. That's one of the things that we've noticed, or, I, don't even take my word for it. The University of Hawaii has done a 5-year study on aquaponic systems against soil persistence. And even when they introduced salmonella and E. coli and other, bacterial pathogens, they found that not only could the plant roots filter them out, but the microbial inhabitants or microbial creatures that live within an aquaponic system actively hunt down and eat and consume, especially things like trichoderma and some of the other beneficial microbes that are in an aquaponic system, actively hunt down and consume things like E. coli and salmonella. I'm just using that as one example, but you also have the worms, the black worms and red worms, and some of the other microbes in the system, as well as amoebas, that all consume these pathogens that would generally be, food cause food safety issues um, in the industry, and that are actively bred out in your system. It's one of the nice things about aquaponic systems, despite many farms across the country and around the world. There isn't a single case throughout every single aquaponics farm in all of history of there ever being a food pathogen outbreak as a result of an aquaponic cannabis farm. And it's simply because in an aquaponic system you have all these beneficial microbes and bacteria that simply outcompete things like pythium or salmonella or E. coli. There's no lilopathy or allopathy or other metabolites, even from any of your microbials or other biological organisms, that are built up enough and not consumed immediately by another microbe to cause any kind of pathogen outbreak. And that, when you have a high level of microbial activity, you don't end up with enough waste material to build up salmonella or E. coli or any of these other things like you do with soil or some of the other ones. And it just happens to do with microbial population.
Biodiversity.
Exactly. Biodiversity and microbial population, will solve everything if you have them in the right balance.
And I also noticed that the the actual concept of that you were now speaking of, that described, is kind of difficult for other farmers to get to grasp, and that's because they're doing farming as chemistry based, as in
Yep.
you add nitrogen and that kind of thing. But in reality, these things is the direct consequence of biological activity.
We're gonna
So
wrap
once
it.
you're getting biological activity in your aquaponic system, you're getting the same or more uh, access to nutrients.
Absolutely.
Well, good people of the aquaponic world, we keep on carrying on and waving that flag of the good future of an abundant, fed, and medicated world. You keep on shining with that. And we're going to keep on shining too. And as long as we keep on communicating, the world will soon learn to keep up with the good standards of the good food and the good health and the good things, in which is the bounty of this beautiful earth here for us to have.
Absolutely.
Amen.
We want to thank you here at
Thank you.
Potent Ponics.
We love C Funk. He's almost a resident positive preacher, we like to say.
There you go.
Yeah, a cartoon character, whatever.
He does a lot of the more incredible artwork here, and he's a very big inspiration, and many other things here. He helps out a lot as far as his
Either
help
way,
with
enough
this.
about me. We was just trying to wrap it up and give you all the proper props that you deserve.
Thank
It's
you.
cool.
Being on this
We
show.
want to make sure he gets his spotlight too. He's we might
I'm gonna
bring
keep
him.
shining, as I want you to as well. You just keep shining. Keep on shining now.
we'll bring him on the show again here more often.
Trying.
I very much appreciate having you both on the show.
Thank you so much.
I'd love to actually, let me throw a random question out to the both of you. What are y'all's opinions on the recent Trump administration's actions against the cannabis industry and them, negatively regulating the, calling for crackdowns on the industry?
I'll let Damien take this one. I have a strong opinion, but I'm
Honestly, I don't know. You got to tell me what it is did he do? What did he do?
Oh,
Are you
so
familiar with it?
okay, I'm sorry. I guess Damien isn't included in. So, for those of you that didn't listen to last week, or anyone else, the Trump administration has said they're going to come after recreational cannabis producers. But thankfully, for those of you that aren't aware, in 2014, the Congress of the United States passed a law saying that it is illegal for any federal funds to ever be spent on cracking down on medical cannabis users as long as they are abiding by state law. So as long as they are following state law, meaning they aren't growing more than they aren't supposed to, they aren't doing anything illegal like doing open air BHO blasting in their backyard or in their kitchen in an apartment complex to be even more of a oh shit case. Don't ever do that. If you do that, I will find you and I will slap you. Make sure you don't do that. But yeah, assuming you are following state law, it is illegal for federal funds to be sent after you or spent on you to prosecute you for cannabis possession if you're a medical patient in America.
Used to be.
No. That is still the case. That is exactly what Jeff Sessions said, and he said that the same law does not apply to recreational users, and that Congress never passed a recreational user law. So if you're medical, you're straight, but if you're a rec, you're in trouble, which is why Marty has been having migraines the last couple of weeks and why he is not now moving and why you didn't get a live stream from his farm the other day, because the recreational market has since had the literally, and I was involved in a bunch of recreational ones that I am no longer. 3 separate projects literally had the rug pulled out from underneath me. I'm telling you that live on air. I don't want to tell you that. It's borderline embarrassing to tell you that. But Jeff Sessions caused that. So did the Trump administration. They pulled the rug out from underneath 3 projects that I had that were, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars out of my pocket.
Progress takes a lot of courage.
So
medical is bought by corporations.
Medical is legal. Recreational is not legal under the federal administration's current guidelines. Yes.
I'm asking.
Currently.
Who produces medical? Is it
who produces medical?
Yeah.
Medical is produced by certain producers that are medically licensed that have a separate regulatory structure than the recreational producers. They have two completely different two completely different regulatory structures depending on the state. Every state is magnificently different in terms of what they require and do not require, and the difference between medical and recreational production. Colorado, for example, requires very, very detailed high accuracy percentage testing on medical production and cannabis, and does not require it on requires it on recreational but not medical, unless that has since changed since I left 4 months ago or 5 months ago, or in November, so I guess 4 months ago. So unless they've changed this year, that is the case.
On recreational medical?
Yes, so recreational is held to a much higher standard.
Okay.
Which makes no sense, which we can all agree on.
There's going to be Marlboro Greens. They've already got the word Marlboro Greens. They already got it set up. They're planning on corporatizing. It's going to be some corporate shenanigans. And
Philip Morris.
So what are your business
So actually, it's funny.
from
I actually, on a separate note, I was approached by Philip. Full disclosure, I was approached by Philip Morris not that long ago because they were looking into long-term switching to cannabis. So the industry is eventually switching. They understand that tobacco is not the future of their industry. They understand cannabis is, and they're going to switch. It's just a matter of they have more money to throw around and more lobbyist money and more other things. And while I'm not going to get involved with them, it was interesting to see them have interest in aquaponic cannabis production as a method of cheap production in the large scale.
Uh, I think I got a pretty good understanding now.
Yeah, I would love to chime in, but I have a child I need to put to bed.
Do you need to get going?
I'm gonna get going in a minute, Steve.
Do you want to step out and plug?
This is a whole nother topic. I think you need to do a whole
Well,
other podcast.
and this is why I love this has been an amazing episode. I love the fact of how spiritual this episode is and how the fact that we had these two amazing guests that are both able to feed up on that. I guess we'll wrap up the episode real quick since everyone seems to need to get going. I don't want to keep Damien up. It's 11, almost 12. I guess it's 12. Is it 11:11 or 12:11 where you are?
Whatever time it is, I'm going back to party.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
fucking late. Regardless of what it is, it's fucking late where he is as far as a weeknight. So we very much appreciate him taking out the time. This is him and I have been trying to do a podcast for what, maybe 2 months now, 3 months,
That's about
quite a while.
Yeah.
I'm happy to have you on the show anytime you want to come on the show again. You've been a great guest. I very much appreciate your input, and it's been wonderful to speak to someone else that speaks at least a small amount of patois. I'm sure you speak more than a small amount, but it's been really wonderful to have someone else that speaks patois after living that way for a while and having to speak nothing but that for a while. So,
But actually, I put in all my good accent, huh?
go ahead.
No, I'm telling you, I'm not 400.
What was that? I'm sorry.
Oh dear. Well, I wanted to say thanks for listening to me, and be sure to search for the aquaponic machine and ask some, give me some
Absolutely.
comments, some feedback, something.
You the
Uh,
one.
Anytime, man. You're
Thanks.
welcome on the show anytime in the future. If you want to hop on next week, you're welcome to, man. And that goes for anyone that's ever been on the show. They're always welcome. We've had a couple of repeat guests, not too many, but anytime you ever want to come on again or learn or talk to some of the guests that we have, feel free, man. I really appreciate anybody that comes on the show and takes their time to, spread knowledge. That's what this show is about spreading aquaponic knowledge. It doesn't matter if it's, some little tip or trick on a particular herb or a particular crop or lettuce or tomatoes or whatever. It's about the fact that you can go back and listen to now what the podcast is 70 or 80 hours worth of content that you can listen to on, all these different growers, all these different, people that own different farms or different companies or different extract things or, all across both the aquaponic and cannabis industry, respectively. Neither one of you are cannabis industry related at the moment, but just the fact that we have aquaponic growers, that's why we do call it the growing with fishes. It's not necessarily about cannabis. It's not necessarily about aquaponics. It's about both, and trying to have a podcast that brings in both halves of those because those communities overlap so heavily that, why should we exclude ourselves to one or the other? It's great to have some of the medicinal herb people one week and, extraction artists one week and people, both of you people, you, Damien and Jessica, both that run, highly successful commercial farms that are, making a living off of doing what a lot of the people that listen to this show would wish they could do on a week-to-week basis. So it's great to, feeding and healing the world, as C Funk would love to say. it's great to hear from y'all and to hear from your firsthand experiences and to get your perspective both from people in the Caribbean and from people on the West Coast and all over the world. That's why I love having, that's why we took 2 episodes ago. We had an episode on a Friday so that we get the guy from Australia. We love to hear from people all over the planet. So it's wonderful to get such a variety of amazing guests on the show. So I appreciate both of you coming on the show today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for hosting, Steve.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Do you have any websites or anything you'd like to plug on your or YouTube pages or anything else you guys want to plug? I'll give you the floor first, Damien.
Just search for aquaponic machine and add your little piece of it.
Either one.
Okay, aquaponic machine. You got it, boss. Jessica, do you have anything that you'd like to plug? I know you guys have ouroborosfarms.com.
Yeah, look
You
us
have
up at
aquachronic.com.
Yeah, we've got aquachronic.com. That's currently in the works right now. We also have some wonderful courses with the aquaponic farming course that we're offering 5 times this year, as well as classes that Ken offers every month, and of course the aquaponic cannabis class and medicinal herbs class that Steve currently is teaching right now.
Wonderful. And if anyone else would like to buy produce and happens to be near the San Francisco area, you could definitely reach them on. You can get them on. Where is your distribution of your produce? I'm sorry.
Absolutely. So we sell out of our retail space, and one of our biggest distributors right now is called Good Eggs. They're out of San Francisco. They're an online farmers market meat grocery stand where you can get all of your local produce, ice cream, meats, eggs, veggies, all kinds of stuff. So really good outlet. And we also do farm to table dinners, or I should say table at the farm dinners.
Wonderful.
Where you can try some of our fish and our produce as well.
So if you happen to be in the San Francisco area, definitely go check them out. If you want to learn more about medicinal herb growing or cannabis growing, be sure to check me and them out at over at ouroborosfarms.com. You can sign up for any of the classes that I teach, as well as what they teach over there. If you want a commercial class, they teach one of the best, if not the best, commercial class in the entire industry right now. Over at aquaponicfarmingcourse.com. You can check them out there. And be sure to check them out. Also check out Marty's page. Marty couldn't join us this week. He had a emergency munchkin situation where he had to babysit a bunch of munchkins. So be sure to check him out over at AP Meds. Fish Ganja Guy tried really hard to make it, but he got wife aggro. So we will give him a mention. Fish Ganja Guy on YouTube.com. And be sure to check me out at potentponics.com and potentponics on YouTube. You can also check out you know what? I'm a dummy. I totally forgot all about like the big thing that I was allowed to talk about this week, which I'll get into for a couple of minutes, or at least a minute or two. I can't believe I forgot about it. I've been so wrapped up with these amazing guests.
Do you have a new endeavor, Steve? Something happening?
I have a new endeavor, which you know about, but so I actually recently signed on with I have a really exciting announcement. So I signed on with Alternative Farming Solutions based out of Alberta, Canada. I'll be working with Charlie Schultz as well as Nicholas Sandoval and some of the other biggest names in aquaponics that originally founded aquaponic commercial model at UVI. At this brand new commercial aquaponics farm up in Canada. We'll be growing vegetables, medicinal herbs, culinary herbs, as well as cannabis. So we're pretty much, the idea is to be the bleeding edge of technology as far as cannabis is concerned, with the brightest minds in the industry. And I can't tell you everyone that's involved, without breaking NDA, but we pretty much have the brightest people in terms of chemistry understanding in the industry, and we will bring you guys some of the coolest content and some of the neatest videos and some of the best exclamations coming forward on the YouTube channel that this podcast is hosted on. So look forward to that. We're going to have explanations on different questions and problems that you have from literally some of the brightest minds in the entire industry, people that have been doing this for 20, 30, 35 years, that they've been doing aquaponics, well beyond, what, you know, anyone else in the industry has been doing. So it'll be really cool as far as stepping up the game of both this podcast and some of the other videos that are produced on this channel, as well as, whenever we switch to whatever future channel we have with the new company, bringing you guys some of the best content, and not only best content, but best researched content, stuff that has decades worth of research, decades worth of knowledge behind it, not just someone off, on a random YouTube channel, but giving you the stuff that's genuinely, provable, and been not only proven on a backyard scale, but proven on a commercial scale. You'll be able to see plants growing on a weekly basis once this is all built out here in a month or a couple months here. Once this is all built out, you'll be able to see for yourself how well some of this stuff grows, and you can tell me if it looks bad or not, or if it looks like that. But it won't. I'm telling you right now, it won't. But if there's something you want to nitpick about, you can bring it up, and we're happy to discuss it. And not only that, I can give you a really good answer. And if I can't, I'm happy to bow to the people that can. You know what I mean? And if I, we'll absolutely get you the people that can give you the proper answer. So that's some of the stuff that you guys can look forward to in the show coming forward. So it's really wonderful and honestly incredible to be invited to be on, and an honor to be invited to work on that kind of project coming forward. And we're hoping to take over the industry after working with a bunch of people that didn't quite hit the head on the nail.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So it'll be really fun to work with a bunch of cool people that I've worked on a couple of other previous projects with, and I don't know. I'm very enthusiastic about the future. Let me leave it that way. So next week, hopefully, Marty will be back, and Fish Ganja Guy will be back. Also, one last thing I wanted to mention. Check me out. I'll be on the Dude Grows show here hopefully tomorrow. I thought I'd be on earlier this week, but I guess they decided to do the recording we did later in the week. So if not, it'll be on next week. I did a recording with the Dude Grows show on climate control methods in greenhouses, and we touched on a few other topics as well. So definitely check us out over at the Dude Grows show. They're big supporters of the show. For those of you who don't know, you can also find the show over there. Fish Ganja Guy as well as Marty also do blogs over there. So if you're looking for more aquaponic cannabis content, it's definitely a great place to look for more written articles or additional video content other than what you find on this podcast. So thanks a lot, guys.
Awesome.
I appreciate both of the two guests for coming out on the tonight, and again, big thank you to both of them. And be sure to check out Ouroboros Farms and the aquaponics machine. And thanks for joining us. Have a great night, everyone. And hopefully we'll finally have that intro and outro that I keep promising you all. Both the artists that are helping us with it are sitting next to me right now. So hopefully I can now guilt them / twist their arm into finishing that. All right. I'll see you guys later. We're kind of getting silly. Peace out. Cheers. Thanks again.